All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to talk about something that, well, it goes against pretty much everything you've probably heard about AI and the jobs it's coming for.
When you think about AI taking over jobs, this is probably the first thing that pops into your head. The classic image, right? Robots on an assembly line. It totally makes sense, automating all those repetitive physical tasks.
Or maybe you think of this, self-driving trucks. I mean, we've been hearing about it for years. It just feels like the next logical step for automation to hit our highways.
And of course, there's this one. The chatbots, the automated call centers, we've all dealt with them. So yeah, this seems like another job category that's obviously on the chopping block. But what if all these common assumptions are missing the real, much bigger target?
Yeah, you heard that right. What if the first to go aren't the people on the front lines, but the people in the middle, the ones actually running the teams? I know, it sounds completely backwards, but stick with me because the logic here is surprisingly solid.
So, to really get why this middle layer is such a perfect and unexpected target for AI, we've got to first understand what they even do. For literally decades, managers have been the human glue holding companies together. They're the operational backbone of the whole corporate world.
So what does a manager actually do all day? Well, it's a whole lot of this stuff, right? They're tracking KPIs, running endless meetings, approving budgets, figuring out who does what, and then doing performance reviews. This has been the job description for ever.
And here is the uncomfortable truth. If you strip away all the jargon and the fancy titles, most of what a manager does boils down to one thing: coordination. And it just so happens that organizing, tracking, and optimizing information, coordination, is something an algorithm can do incredibly well.
So let's really get into the weeds on this. Let's break down what a manager really does and put it side by side with what AI is great at.
Okay, if you boil it all down, a manager's job is basically to be an information hub. They monitor what's going on, they allocate resources to get things done, they report up the chain to communicate progress, and they evaluate how it all went. It's all about information flow.
So before I show you what's next, just think about it for a second. What is AI really, really good at? I mean, we're talking about analyzing massive amounts of data, right? Finding patterns, automating boring reports.
And there it is. Look at that. It's almost a perfect one-to-one match. A manager monitors performance, and AI analyzes performance data in real time instantly. A manager allocates resources, and AI can optimize that allocation on the fly. A manager generates reports, and AI automates the entire process. The overlap here it's undeniable.
And that massive overlap leads us to this idea of an AI operation system. Think about it. Middle managers have always been the human translators between high-level company strategy and the actual day-to-day work. But an AI can do that translation job faster, way cheaper, and without any bias. And that puts the role itself in a really vulnerable spot.
An AI system can handle this stuff with an efficiency that's, it's superhuman. It can watch key performance indicators live, assign a new task the second an old one is done, shift resources around based on what's happening right now, and even spot risks before a human ever could. A person just can't keep up with that kind of speed.
And then you have the messy human stuff. An AI doesn't play favorites, it doesn't get tired or cranky after a long day, it's not going to make a bad decision because it's in a bad mood. It just runs on pure data, which removes a huge amount of human error from the whole system.
At the end of the day, for any business, this all comes down to a really powerful incentive: money. Middle managers are expensive. You've got salary, benefits, bonuses, office space. It's a huge chunk of a company's budget.
So when you put that massive, ongoing cost up against something like a scalable AI software subscription, from a purely financial standpoint, the choice becomes crystal clear. You could replace an entire team of managers with one AI system and save millions of dollars a year.
But, okay, before we call it a day for human managers everywhere, it's not quite that simple. There are some really critical things that AI is still terrible at, and this is where humans have a huge, unbeatable advantage.
Think about it. An AI can inspire a team that's feeling defeated. It can't sit down and mediate a complicated personal fight between two key employees. It can't build a company culture from scratch or navigate a tricky ethical problem. These are uniquely human skills, the kind you need for real leadership. So senior leaders are probably safe, for now. But that routine, day-to-day coordination, not so much.
So what does all this mean for the big picture? I mean, we're not just talking about a single job title going away. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how companies are even built. The disruption here is way bigger than just one role. It strikes at the very heart of the corporate ladder itself. AI has the potential to completely flatten the way organizations are structured.
For more than a century, this has been the model, right? A wide base of workers, then a few layers of middle management, and a handful of executives way up at the top. Information has to slowly trickle up and down through all those layers. But with AI, that whole structure just becomes obsolete. When information flows instantly, when reporting is totally automated, and when decisions are driven by data, you just don't need all those layers in the middle anymore. The pyramid gets squashed into a much flatter, more direct network.
And it all comes back to this one simple idea. AI isn't really replacing people's ability to code or design or sell. It's replacing the coordination of that work. And since management, when you get right down to it, is coordination, it's standing directly in the path of this revolution.
So the real question isn't whether this change is coming, it's how we're all going to respond to it. The future is going to belong to people who can use these new tools and really lean into those human skills that AI just can't touch. So the challenge for all of us is adaptation. How are you going to adapt?